Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into the Testors Italeri RSO Battle Tractor in 1/35 scale. So grab a seat, relax, and let's get started. This is basically the same kit you'd get straight from Italeri, but it's just when Testors became Testors Italeri. Definitely an oldie but goodie. I figured it was time to get back in time and wrestle with a full-on dinosaur kit, and this one's been on my list for a while. I also lucked out and picked it up for 12 bucks. I wish they were all that cheap, but hey, I'll take the win. Older kits are definitely going to come with their own set of issues. You'll find more flash, more mold lines, and a bit more cleanup work than you'd see on a modern kit. And with what I'll just call Italeri from here on out, some parts actually have decent detail, and others, well, not so much. That said, for a kit that was probably designed back in the 1970s, it does manage to hold its own with some surprisingly good details. Now, the rubber tracks actually have better detail than some of the early Tamiya ones, which was a nice surprise. That said, as you see, I did manage to pick up a set of model casting tracks specifically for this kit. I could have gone full PE on this build too, but honestly, the goal here was to keep it simple and just enjoy building an oldie but goodie, mostly straight out of the box. The color choice of the molded parts was honestly going to play havoc on my eyes. That dark green made the build a bit of a struggle at times. On top of that, the way Italeri crams so much into a single step can definitely be a challenge. You really have to slow things down, hunt for the actual glue points, and test fit just about everything before committing. Older kits also used a different type of plastic, so it sands a bit differently than what you're used to with a modern kit. It's not a huge problem, just something you probably notice if you jump into one of these. I've been trying to dig through my brain to remember if I ever built an Italeri kit back as a kid. But it was mostly Tamiya kits, although I might have tackled the Italeri Sherman at some point. Either I'm too old to remember, or I just never built one of them in the first place. Who knows? You might be asking why even bother building an older kit. Honestly, it's what I grew up with. I do build plenty of modern kits and newer Tamiya releases, but some of these Italeri kits offer subjects you don't always see elsewhere, and that $12 price tag definitely didn't hurt. I know there are more recent RSO releases out there, but once this is painted up, you'll see how it holds up surprisingly close to those newer kits. I don't think Tamiya Extra Thin was even a thing when this kit was originally released, but it's working great here, and the build itself has been going smoothly. Stepping back to an older kit like this without 100 tiny parts to install is actually kind of refreshing. That said, in the next few months I'll be tackling an RFM kit, so I'd better enjoy this calm before the storm. That's Ryfield models, by the way. This is one of those builds where you kind of remember why you fell in love with the hobby in the first place. No pressure, no 20-step sub-assemblies before you even get to the glue, two parts together. Just plastic, glue, and figuring things out as you go. Older kits force you to slow down whether you want to or not. You're not blasting through instructions on autopilot, you're actually building again. I think that's what people forget sometimes. Not every kit has to be a masterpiece packed with photo etch, metal barrels, and enough parts to build a second tank by accident. There's something satisfying about working with what's in the box, cleaning things up, test fitting, and making small improvements where it actually matters. You feel more involved in the process instead of just assembling a very expensive Lego set. And yeah, this kit has its quirks. The instructions definitely assume you already know what you're doing, and some of the part callouts feel more like suggestions than actual guidance, but that's kind of the charm. You're thinking ahead, asking yourself why something goes where it does, instead of just trusting the diagram blindly. When you're messing up, and you will, you usually can fix it without dismantling half the vehicle. I also think we sometimes underestimate what paint can do. I certainly have. A lot of people write off older kits right out of the box because the detail isn't razor sharp or the parts feel chunky. But once you get primer on, start layering paint and add some washes, dry brushing and weathering, all of a sudden those soft details don't look so bad anymore. This thing will absolutely come to life once it hits the paint booth. There's also something nice about not feeling guilty if you experiment on a $12 kit. You're more willing to try new techniques, push weathering a bit harder, or test something you've been unsure about. If it works, great. If it doesn't, lesson learned. You're not sitting there thinking, well, I just ruined a $100 kit. So, yeah, this RSO might not have every bell and whistle of a modern release, but it's been a fun, relaxing build so far. And right now, that's exactly what I'm looking for, especially before I dive into a something more way complicated kit like an RFM kit. You know, there's something oddly therapeutic about working on a kit like this. No micro photo etch frenzy, no tiny little resin grab handles to lose under the workbench, no feeling like this kit is trying to eat you alive with its complexity. It's just parts, glue, and figuring things out, just like it used to be. You really get to think while you build instead of just following a step-by-step checklist, and honestly, that's part of the fun. Sometimes I catch myself just staring at pieces thinking, okay, where does this go and why? And then you realize half the time the instructions don't really tell you. You just have to rely on logic or stubbornness. And that's the kind of a lost art in modern kits, isn't it? Everything is so polished now, so tightly guided that you don't really feel like you're creating anything, just assembling someone else's plan. Another thing I appreciate is the pace. Modern kits, especially RFM or an older Dragon, can be intimidating. You see 100 parts in a single step and your head skips a beat. Here, you're building something that's manageable. You can actually finish a subassembly in one sitting and see the real progress. And that's the sense of accomplishment. It never gets old. Even something as simple as gluing a fender in the right place feels like a victory. I also like how older kits encourage problem solving. Some parts aren't perfect fits, or there's a little extra flash you didn't notice at first, especially on the older kits. It forces you to think creatively. Maybe trim here, maybe add a little putty there, maybe just embrace the imperfection, and honestly, those little imperfections end up giving the model character. Modern kits can be so flawless they almost feel sterile in comparison. And let's be real, there's a nostalgia factor too. Handling a kit that might have been designed decades ago kind of makes you feel connected to the history of the hobby itself. You can almost imagine the modelers back in the 70s picking up the same sprues, wondering the same things, struggling with the same tricky parts. That's a little piece of modeling heritage you get to experience firsthand. Of course, there's always the funny moments, that wait, where does this part go panic, or realizing you just glued something upside down. Or maybe you test fit it perfectly and then the instructions lie to you anyway. Those are the little stories that make a build memorable, not just a shelf full of perfect tanks. And yeah, I may or may not have muttered a few choice words at a stubborn part earlier, but hey, that's part of the process too. Anyway, that's the beauty of kits like this. They're approachable, they're fun, and they let you really be a modeler, not just a kit assembler. And after spending a little time with it, you start to appreciate the design decisions, even if they're a little rough around the edges and a dark color. It's not about perfection, it's about the experience, the learning, and yes, the eventual payoff when it's painted and ready to display. Even though building an older kit like this RSO is a lot of fun, you can't help but notice how far modeling has come. Some of the fit issues, vague instructions, and the need for constant test fitting is all part of the charm, sure, but it's also a little reminder of why modern kits make life a little easier. I love the nostalgia, but I also love not having to guess where a part goes. Modern kits just make things smoother, but yes, there is a transition if all you've built is these older kits, so you have to get used to the newer instructions and things like that. But the plastic, the precision, the instructions, they're designed to guide you without holding your hand too much. The level of detail is higher, the fit is more reliable, and you don't spend half an evening sanding mold lines that shouldn't exist. It's not cheating, it's just progress, and as a builder, it's hard not to appreciate that. That said, there's something satisfying about mixing it up. Working on an older kit like this makes you slow down, problem solve, and really think about each step, but after a build like this, it's also nice to go back to a modern kit where you can enjoy more details, precision, and sometimes even some clever engineering. It's like comparing classic cars to modern ones. You appreciate both, but in different ways. At the end of the day, I'll admit it, I still lean toward modern kits for most builds. They're easier to assemble, well, sometimes, cleaner, and usually more fun when it comes to painting and weathering because the parts fit so well. But there's no denying the charm and the learning experience of the older kits. They're a trip down memory lane, at least for me, and a challenge, and sometimes a bargain, if you're lucky, like I was with this one. Sometimes older kits like this RSL really benefit from a little aftermarket help. I mean, the kit isn't as crisp as you would want it to be, but especially the tracks. The molded rubber tracks are fine, and I could use those and it would look good, but they don't always have that crisp detail you might want. That's where something like model casting or individual track lengths come in. I'm Italian again, kind of like using photo etch on older kits. Not strictly necessary, but it can elevate the build, make it look more authentic. Even on a simple, out of the box, a little upgrade like that can take it from nice to wow, that's sharp. And honestly, when you see the finished tracks in place, it feels like a small victory. You've added precision without turning it into a full-blown PE nightmare. So, overall, this build has been a really enjoyable experience. Going back to an older kit like this RSO reminds me that modeling doesn't always have to be complicated to be fun. It's been a slower, more thoughtful build, and honestly, sometimes that's exactly what you need. You're not racing through instructions or juggling a dozen sub-assemblies, you're just building and enjoying the process. Once the paint starts going on, this kit will really start to shine. A good paint job, some weathering, and a bit of patience can make even an older kit stand tall next to the newer ones on the shelf. At the end of the day, that's what matters, how it looks finished, and how much fun you had getting there. So, if you got an older kit sitting in your stash, maybe give it a shot. You might be surprised at how enjoyable it can be, even with the quirks, and if nothing else, it's a nice reminder of where the hobby came from and how far it has come. As always, thanks for hanging out with me and watching the build. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. There are plenty more builds on the way, some old, some new, and probably a few that will test my patience. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you in the next video.